Hello class, welcome to today's lesson, which is subtopic 1.5, conversion of units through a conversion factor. In order to understand this, guys, we need first to see or to study or to understand what an equivalence is, and next, what a conversion factor is. Once we know these two things, we can start converting units from one unit to another using a conversion factor. So let's start. So first, what is an equivalence, guys? An equivalence is something very simple to understand. For example, we know that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, right? We also know that 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. I don't know if you know about this, but 1 mile equals 1,609 meters, approximately, etc. Let me write down another one. 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters, and I can write down many more. So all of these things are equivalences. So what is an equivalence? It's basically saying or stating that one unit in particular, a certain amount of units, a quantity in a certain unit, which in this case is 1 meter, is equal to another quantity, but in another unit, basically. Or well, I think I said it in a very complex way. Basically, an equivalence is this: it's the same quantity but expressed in different units. 1 meter and 100 centimeters are the same quantities, but they are expressed in different units, right? In here we have meters, and in here we have centimeters. So when we say that one of them is equal to the other, then we are writing down an equivalence. This is an equivalence. And the same for the rest. 1 kilogram is equal, therefore the word equivalence from equal, 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, and so on. So these are equivalences. And just a small remark. Many people think that you have to memorize these equivalences. No, you don't have to. You don't have to, but it's a good idea to memorize at least the simple ones. For example, this one. This is very simple, right? If you don't know this one, you are in trouble because this is just common knowledge. The same as this and some other few. But for example, this one and this one, which relate to English system units, these ones are harder to memorize and you don't have to. You will always be provided these kinds of equivalences during exams, etc. So you don't have to worry about those. Okay, next concept, the concept of conversion factor. What is a conversion factor? A conversion factor is the following. Once you write down an equivalence, which I'm gonna do right now, let me write down this one. 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. So this is an equivalence. With an equivalence, guys, you can write down two fractions, which I'm gonna do right now. Look, 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters, and I can write down this other fraction, 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch. So these two fractions that I just wrote, this fraction and this fraction, using the quantities from an equivalence, as you can see, these are what we know as conversion factor. This is a conversion factor. I'm going to abbreviate CF, conversion factor, and this is another conversion factor. So what is a conversion factor? How can we define a conversion factor? Well, we may say that a conversion factor is a fraction. It's a fraction that we can create out of an equivalence. All right. And the other very important property is the following. The other very important property about a conversion factor is this. I'm going to write this in big words so that you understand it. They are equal to 1. any conversion factor is equal to 1. Why? Because you are dividing some quantity, in this case 1 inch, over its equal. And when you divide something over its equal, what's that equal to? So it's going to be equal to 1, right? It's like when you divide 5 over 5, you will get 1. If you divide a over its equal thing, you're going to get 1, etc. Whenever you divide something over its equal, you will get 1. And that's what happens here, right? That's exactly what happens here. Well, we are dividing a quantity over its equal expressed in another unit, so we should get 1. Okay, so that's what a conversion factor is. And now let's start converting units using conversion factors. Okay, let's start with this example. I'm gonna give you 4 examples, guys. Number 1, we want to convert 3.2 inches into centimeters. We want to do this. Okay, fine. How do we start the process? The first step is write down the equivalence between your units of interest, which in this case are inches and centimeters. So I need to look up the equivalence between inches and centimeters. Most of the times you are gonna be given this, and if not, you can look it up on the internet. These are available anywhere. Just write down, just type on Google equivalence between inches and centimeters, and you will find that out. So since I know the equivalence, and I already told you 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. That's it. That is the first step. Second step, you need to create the two conversion factors. Create two conversion factors out of this equivalence. I'm going to use this equivalence and I'm going to create the two conversion factors. Let's do it. One of which is this 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters, comma, and the other is 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch. So these are my two conversion factors. Fine. And the third step is already doing the conversion. Okay, let's do it. So we have the original quantity here, 3.2 inches. What we need to do is this, guys. We need to write it down. And if this original quantity that you want to convert is not in the shape of a fraction, you're going to shape it as a fraction. How do you do that? You just divide over 1. Because if you divide something over 1, you're not changing it, right? You're just dividing over 1. You can always divide over 1 without a problem. So let's do that. Now I'm going to close it in parentheses. You're going to see why in a moment. And the next trick, the next step, which is a trick, is this. I'm going to multiply this by a conversion factor, which I'm going to write in blue. One of these, either this conversion factor or this conversion factor. Which one am I going to choose? Well, since I want to change this into centimeters, what I want to get rid of is this unit. I wanna somehow get rid of the inches unit or cancel it. And so when you look at these two conversion factors, you're going to realize that this is the appropriate one. We need to choose this one, the one that has inches uh, in the denominator. Why? Because take a look at this. The inches appear in the numerator, and when I write down this one in here, like so, you see, then what I'm going to be looking at is this. Since I have inches in the numerator and inches in the denominator, they can get canceled. I can cancel them because they are equal factors on opposite sides of a fraction. And that's it, guys. Once I have done that, the rest is very simple. I just multiply 3.2 times 2.54 times centimeters. And I'm going to write it down in here. So take down your calculator. And let's do that operation. I'm gonna get 8.128 centimeters. And below, I'm gonna get just 1, which is 1 times 1, it's 1. And finally, this is the same as this. So that's my conclusion, guys. My conclusion is 3.2 inches is equal to 8.128 centimeters. This is my result. And this is how it's done. It's broken, the whole thing is broken down in 3 steps. And I'm gonna do it once again. I'm gonna give you several examples. Okay, number 2. How about this? Convert 2 meters, well, let's say 2.1 meters. 2.1 meters to, let's say, 2 miles. 2.1 meters to miles. Okay, first step, remember, write down the equivalence between meters and miles. I'm going to give you the equivalence. The equivalence is that 1,609 meters is equal to 1 mile. Second step, let's write down the 2 conversion factors that I can create with this equivalence. And those are going to be this. This is one of them, and the other is this one. You see? And the third step is the following. Pick your original quantity that you want to convert, 2.1 meters, write it down, 2.1 meters, and then shape it as a fraction, like so, and close it in parentheses. And then let's multiply it by an appropriate conversion factor. So it's going to be either this or this. How are you going to tell which one to use? Well, just look at the unit you want to cancel. You want to cancel meters. And in this conversion factor, the meters appear below. So you need to use this one again. There you go. Then if we do this, we can cancel these meters with these meters. And therefore we can just carry out this operation of fractions, this multiplication of fractions. 2.1 times 1 times mile, we're going to get 2.1 mile over 1 times 1,609, which is 1,609. So this is the result, 2.1 miles over 1,609. And then just simplify. In other words, divide 2.1 over this denominator. Let's do it. And you will get, if you do that in the calculator, you will get approximately 1.305 times 10 to the minus 3 miles. And that's my result. So my conclusion is the following. 2.1 meters equals 1.305 times 10 to the minus 3 miles. So this is my result. Let's move on. Next example, number 3. How about the following? Let's convert 15 millimeters to the cube, or cubic millimeters, into cubic meters. Okay. Number 1, the equivalence. What is equivalence? We know that 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. Number 2, let's write down the conversion factors. And number three, let's actually get down to the conversion. I'm gonna choose my original quantity. I'm gonna shape it as a fraction, and I'm gonna multiply it by a conversion factor. But you will run into a problem in this case because, for example, you look at this unit, which is cubic millimeters, and if you're thinking, well, I need to use this conversion factor because it has the millimeters below. Well, yeah, that's right. We have to use it, but that's not going to be enough. Why not? Because in here we have cubic millimeters, and in here we have just millimeters raised to the first power. So it's not enough to multiply by one of these conversion factors. What we need to do is add another two. We have to multiply by three of these conversion factors, like so. Look, the same thing, but three times. Why? Because you must understand, guys, that millimeter to the cube is just millimeter times millimeter times millimeter. So you need to cancel not just one, but two, but three. 3 millimeters. And each one of these millimeters in blue will cancel each one of these millimeters which appear here. They are just hidden, están escondidos with this exponent. Basically, you have the same as this. Millimeter to the cube is the same as millimeter times millimeter times millimeter. So now that I have written three conversion factors, I can cancel this millimeter with this millimeter with this millimeter, and this millimeter with this millimeter. So that's how it works. And that's you're gonna have to do the same or something similar when you have units raised to an exponent. Okay? You have to add as many conversion factors as you have in the exponents. That's how it works. Okay, so now I have already canceled the millimeters, and then all that is left to do is just carry out the multiplication. 15 times 1 times meter times 1 times meter times 1 times meter. If you do that, you will get 15 meter to the cube. Why meter to the cube? Because you're multiplying meter times meter times meter. So that's going to be meter to the cube over 1 times 1000 times 1000 times 1000. When you multiply 1000 times 1000 times 1000, you're going to get 1 times 10 to the 9 in scientific notation. And then that's it, right? We just divide 15 over this number. Let's do it in the calculator with a lot of care because it's very easy to make mistakes. And you will get 1.5 times 10 to the minus 8 meters to the cube. So what is our conclusion? Our conclusion is 15 millimeters to the cube is equal to 1.5 times 10 to the minus 8 cubic meters, like so. And one last example, now using a little something a little more complex. Number 4, we have 10 meters per second, which we want to convert into kilometers per hour. Okay, when you have these types of units, guys, when it has more than two units, for example, here we have meters and seconds and kilometers and hours, we're going to have to do the following. So what are the equivalences? First, you need to write down the equivalence between meters and kilometers. There you go. And then you have to write down also the equivalence between seconds and hours. Since I already know it, I'm going to write it down. There you go. You need two equivalences because you're actually trying to convert meters to kilometers and seconds to hours. So you need two equivalences. Second step, the conversion factors. First, create the two conversion factors with this equivalence. And and then the two conversion factors with this other equivalence, which is going to be this. There you go. So we end up with 4 conversion factors. And the third step is already the conversion. So choose your original quantity, 10 meters per second, and please, in here at this point, do not write this slash or this diagonal. I want you to write this quantity as a fraction, like I said before. You always have to write these things as fractions. 10 meters over second. That's what you're gonna do, and you're gonna multiply it by conversion factors. So I need to multiply by 2 conversion factors. Why? Because one of these will cancel the meters and the other will cancel the seconds. So let's first write down a conversion factor here that deals with the meters. Which one should I choose? It's gonna be this one because it has meters below, and in here meters is on top. So we're gonna write 1 kilometer over 1,000 meters, and in a moment we will cancel this meter with this meter. Now, my original quantity has seconds in the denominator. So what conversion factor am I going to use? This or this? I'm going to have to use this because it has seconds on top. And if I write it down, like so, then I can cancel this second with this second. And that's it, guys. Let's cancel what we have to cancel. Meter cancels meter. Second cancels second. And that's it. Now, what I can do is just multiply like before, 10 times 1 times kilometer times 3,600, and you will get this over 1,000 times 1 times hour. There you go. What is the final result? When you divide these two things, you will get 36 kilometers over hour. And if you want to go back to the slash notation, that's fine. At the end, it's okay. 36 kilometers per hour. And that is my solution, guys. My solution is 10 meters per second equals 36 kilometers per hour. So that's how these things work, guys. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the class. That's it.